All right, everyone, we are going to jump into the enterprise voice functionality of Teams. We're going to work through the ability to call out to the external public switched telephone network, or the PSTN. Now, the whole idea behind this here is that what we can do is we can take our, traditional desk phones that, during the pandemic and still, even if we're working remotely, they're just collecting dust on our desktops and they're just forwarding to our cell phone. What we can do here is we can take that and either have an actual physical device, a telephone device, or we could also have it ring to our soft client here, or our actual Teams client. So we're going to go through that here today. We're going to set up some of the calling functions and features as well. We can't get too granular there, obviously, since this is just a lab environment here. But just to show you some of the things that we can do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the Admin Center. Now, with our Microsoft 365 E5 license, we do get the ability to install, or not install, I suppose, but to utilize the calling features inside of Teams. Now, really what that means here, though, is we do not get the ability to dial out to the PSTN. Okay, that actually requires a different license, and that is not included in our E5 license. It's a little bit weird on Microsoft has this. In order to use the enterprise voice functionalities of Teams, we have to have Teams calling. But in order to call out to the PSTN, we have to have enterprise voice, or what Microsoft calls calling plans here, which is essentially using a provider. We get lots of providers here. Now, in this instance here, what we're going to set up is just a trial, and we're going to use Microsoft as our provider. But we got a ton of them. There's a whole bunch of different providers that are available out there. But the good point here, or the good part here, is we get to sign up for a trial with it. So if we go to Show All, we go to Billing, Purchase Services. And when this fully loads up here, we are going to click on calling, or type in calling, excuse me. And we will see we have domestic calling plan, we have audio conferencing. We'll get to that in time here. We do get audio conferencing with our E5 licenses, but what we're going to be doing here is this trial, the Microsoft Teams domestic calling plan for US and Canada trial. We're going to go ahead and hit details on it. And we get this 25 licenses. We get this for a month, and obviously it's $0. But before I click on free trial, I am going to move this over because it does show your home address, and they do that for purposes of what's referred to as in 911 or E911. We'll talk about that as we get in time here, but let me go ahead and just drag this off screen, and I will sign up for the trial. So I'm going to go ahead and start the free trial. And it's going to say the service usage address. So again, that's going to be your home address, which again, don't take offense to it, but I do not want to have that out here. So it is currently in the process of checking out, and we are good to go. So let me go ahead and bring this back here. And then we go to users, active users, and then what we're going to do is we're going to click on our user account, and we're going to assign. Now again, we could easily do, and it's probably best case here, to do a group, but again, since this is just a lab, we're not really all that concerned about it. We're going to go ahead and hit the domestic calling, and you see here that when I check the domestic calling, we'll just do the domestic calling plan here, we get basically that. There's no apps that are along with it. There's nothing new. It doesn't add any additional ones. It's just a feature that happens on here. We're going to go ahead and save the changes. Hit the X on it. And you'll see now we have the Teams domestic calling on here as well. So with that being said, what we're going to do now is we're going to jump over to, we will go to the Teams Admin Center. Now at this point here, we have to assign some telephone numbers. We have to request some telephone numbers here. So we're going to click on Voice, and we're going to go to Phone Numbers. Okay, so right now we have none. All right, now in the past here, maybe we want to port over phone numbers. Maybe we have an existing carrier that we want to port numbers over, so we don't have to get all new phone numbers and everything for everybody. We can do that. We can do a port. Just do a port request. Now that it's transferring from carrier to carrier, so maybe you use I don't know, AT&T, just throwing that out there. Maybe you use an AT&T and you want to switch over to Microsoft as your provider here. Okay, well that's cool. But in this instance, since it's just a lab, what we're going to do here is we're going to hit Add. So there's a couple things about this here. We're just going to call this, when it comes here, we're going to get some phone numbers, and they're going to be whatever is available. Now, blocks typically aren't available on here. They just kind of get ad hoc. And everything is going to be in the format of a E164, which is the normalized. So that's where we get country code, area code, and then you get a 7-digit phone number after, which again, you know, in our instance here would be +1, which is the United States, and then the area code, whatever that may be, followed by 7 digits. That is a normalized phone number. You may have different ones. You know, we have, I think it's 44 is the UK. There's several others out there, of course. But what we're going to call here is just, you know, PSP numbers, lab purposes. You do have to put something in both here, and then we have to choose a region. So obviously I'm going to choose the United States, and then we're going to pick a number type as soon as this loads up. There we go. So there's a whole bunch of different types. So we have user numbers, call queues, auto attendance, call queues too. You notice that we have toll and then toll-free numbers, so we can get toll and toll-free numbers. Again, auto attendant, or we can get dedicated conference bridges. By default, we always use the Microsofts for the conference bridges, but we'll get to that in time. So let's not worry too much about that right now. What we're going to do here is just a standard user number. Okay, so in this instance here, we have to choose. We have 37 of them that we can download or to have right now. That's the quantity that we're available to get. Now, I only want to get 3. So what we can do here is we could search by area code. We could search by city name. So again, maybe we want to find a location that's close to us. So for instance, I am close to, well, we'll just say somewhere. How about, and we'll do Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio. Apparently we cannot find Cleveland. So what we'll do here is, you know what, we'll do area codes a little bit easier. So Cleveland, Ohio has a 216 area code. Now again, when you're playing around with yours, put whatever area code you want in there. I'm just going to do 216 because it's easier. Go ahead and hit next. So they're finding numbers right now that are available that they can provide to us. Now we're only looking for 3. So this will take just a minute here while it searches, and it found these 3 numbers. Now these 3 numbers here are not sequential, as you can see here, but they're all 216, 230, and then they have something at the end there. This one's, I mean, they're close. I mean, they're not far from each other, I suppose, but as you see on here, this is where we're at. So now we get 10 minutes to place this order for them to be reserved to us. Now what's going to end up happening here, since this is a trial, these numbers, once that trial's up, they'll expire and then they'll be thrown back into the pool, of course. So we're just going to go ahead and place the order for now. And we will get these 3 numbers. Now these 3 numbers we can assign to users. Okay, cool. They have been placed. They will appear as soon as they become available, which for the most part is normally immediate. But yeah, and we can see here that they're immediate. So you can see here, Cleveland, Ohio. User, conference, or voice app, therefore. Now we'll do audio or auto attendant here in just a little bit, but these are just going to be these are E164 normalized numbers, as you can see. +1, area code 216, followed by 7 digits after. Easy enough there. Okay, so now at this point here, we want to assign these numbers to people. So we're going to, you know, what do we want to do? We can release them, and if we hit edit, you can see on here where we can assign it to people. Now I'm going to try and assign it. I've had problems here in the past. Perfect. It's actually worked for us. So a lot of times I've seen here where it just takes a replication interval here where we're waiting for this to be assigned, but luckily I'm able to do so. Okay, we also have an emergency location here. So again, in this instance, there's lots of different places that we can do, but what we'll do here is we have to put an emergency location on here. So what we have to, again, this is by organization. We'll talk about E911 here in just a bit. This is actually a big deal, and there's actually some legal implications around this, around Kerry's Law, and there's some other, you know, we'll talk about those in time. But for now, what we're going to do here is we're going to put, let's see, I wonder if I can put put that in there. Now, I think I have to put my location on here, so let me go ahead and scroll over and pull that off screen. We'll search by city. Come on. It is not finding. All right, so this is what we'll do then. So we'll go ahead and cancel out of this here for the time being. We will create a new location first. And then what we'll do there is, all right, so we want to bring this back up over here. So we have the phone numbers that are available to us here, but we need to be able to assign some locations first. So if we scroll down here, we have locations. We have emergency addresses. Now again, that is going to show mine, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that off just for the time being. We're going to click on emergency addresses, and we're going to click one here. And we're going to add a name. So this is HQ, I'm going to call it. And I'm actually going to make a fictitious one here just for the time being. Again, lab purposes, not that bad. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to find an address. So let's just see here. I always like to do this. I am a big baseball fan, and since I'm out of the Cleveland area, I like the now newly renamed Cleveland Guardians. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use Progressive Field. That is the baseball stadium which they use. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that there, again, just because this is a lab environment. They are Ontario Street. Ontario Street, Cleveland, Ohio. All right, so I'm just pulling this up over here. As you can see, I am going to be using that. This is my organization name and such. So emergency calling works in teams. This is, again, just kind of going over. These are emergencies. Now, again, just for your information, obviously you would never, especially for the lab purposes here, we would never dial 911 off of these here ever. That is never the case because they will show up to whatever location we put in here. So pick whatever location you want. If you want to put your home address, that's fine. I'm not going to because I don't want to do that. But it's probably best if you put your home address in here just because it's easier. So we'll go ahead and, yes, if we want to print it, we can go through all of this. We'll go ahead and cancel that. And then hit it. Okay, so we are good here. We're going to go ahead and save. And you'll see we have our HQ. So it has been validated and we're good to go. Now if we come over to ours, we can now assign a location to it. And can we do Cleveland? Yeah, there we go. So HQ shows up now. We're not going to email the user with phone number information, but that is the HQ. That's going to take a second. And okay, we've assigned it to the person, a high quality experience with the team's certified desk. We're not going to worry about any of this. We're just going to go ahead. This is really just around the idea of what they're doing. Since we just did a one-off, normally what we would do here is we would assign en masse. You know, there would be tons of them on here, of course, but we're not all that worried about it right now. So, okay, great. So we have this number right here has been assigned to us, and you hit edit and we should see, there we go, it's been assigned. So if I come over here to the users inside of Teams, manage users, we should see here. Well, we're going to get the calls there, but what we should see, come on, where's the policies? Oh, we did update that one there. Isn't updated with the phone number up there either, and we don't have any Teams devices right now. So, okay, well, we'll just hang tight on that. So that is going to come in time, but not a big deal for now. All right, so for now, if I pull up Teams, and I'll just go ahead and hit the little waffle, hit the Teams, you should see. Now, this may take just a little bit. And there's one thing we got to be very patient about. Every course that I teach on here, especially when we're dealing with cloud-based services, is we have that old, what I like to brand, the Microsoft Minute. We have to take time. There's a lot of replication that happens in the back end, so we just have to wait sometimes. So I'm going to go to calls. And you can see there, okay, so this has come. So we do have a work number here, which is, you know, this 216, 230, all that looks good. So what we want to do here, let's go back over to phone numbers. We're going to take this one here. We're going to edit it. We're going to assign this one to Geddy Lee. Oh, that's because we don't have it. Forgot. We got to go in here and assign Geddy Lee. he actually needs an E5 license as well as the Teams domestic calling plan. Save. Good. Give it a minute here. Edit. Hopefully. Geddy Lee. Cool. That is so much faster than it used to be. Okay, so search by city. We'll do CLE for Cleveland here. Now again, in your instance, obviously put whatever you want in there. I would probably recommend your home address just because it's easier. That's not shared with Microsoft or anything like that. It's just for emergencies, which we will get to in time. Okay, so they still haven't replicated out there in time. So we got to give this one just a little bit. I went too fast with assigning the licenses. You may see these types of errors. That happens. That's very, the Teams app admin center here is very notorious, especially in the calling section. So we just try again. Maybe sometimes it's best to just give it a minute or so. See if this will work. Second time's a charm. There we go. So it's been successfully saved. So again, in this instance, second time is a charm. So what I am going to do is, there's a couple of things. So I'm going to sign in to Teams. And you can see this is still spinning over here. So something's still going on in the back end. But while we're doing that, I'm going to sign into the Teams app. So I have Teams up, open over here. Okay. And if I wanted to, there's several things that I can do. And just to test this out, now in your instance here, I can call my cell phone or you know, one of my fake kind of phone numbers that I have on here. But again, just because I am putting this here and recording this, of course, I never want to expose that, you know, to the organization, the larger group here. So I'm just going to call internally between the two. So you can test this out here with your phone if you wish. So you can just dial in a number. Now I'm just going to show you over here because I'm going to have Geddy Lee signed into Teams. And we will have him signed in after I authenticate like a good user. Prove that. Now I'm going to show you here, and this is just not really the best plan, of course. But what will happen here is that I'm going to have Geddy Lee, and I'm actually going to call, okay? I'm going to call from my computer here. I'm going to call Geddy Lee, or from Geddy Lee. I'm going to call my computer to his phone number, okay? So I'm going to call from Geddy Lee to this account here, this M. Alloway account. As you can see, here's the phone number. All right, so Geddy Lee has not. Go ahead and hit that. All right, he's got a phone number as well, so I'm going to call 216 just to bring this over here so you can see it. So remember, I'm calling from Geddy Lee here, 216-230-5621. Now keep in mind here, once I'm done recording these, I'm going to release these, so these will not go anywhere, so don't attempt to try and call this number here. Call the numbers that you have that you reserved. So I'm calling from Geddy Lee's right now. Calling out through the PSTN, which you can hear is calling right now. And you can see that Geddy Lee is calling you. Now, I am not going to answer this, of course. I'm just going to go ahead and decline. Now, what's going to end up happening here is you can still hear it ringing.
Matt Alloway is currently unavailable. Please leave a message after the tone. When you have finished, please hang up or press.
Now I'm going to go ahead and do that. So you heard that. I'm hoping you heard that anyway. That was a voicemail. So I declined it over here. My M. Alloway account declined that phone number. Okay, and it went to voicemail. So you'll notice that now we have the ability to leave voicemails from the PSTN as well. So when I called, now again, that was a bad idea. You could do this, of course, but why would I want to ever do that? That's kind of a dumb thing to do because I'm literally calling out through the PSTN to come back in to call M. Alloway over here. Geddy Lee is doing that. That's really that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, that's just kind of silly. That's a very cyclic routing. We're going out all the way to the PSTN and then coming back in through the PSTN. That's dumb. Why would I do that? Well, again, there's no real reason to do that. The real reason we would use telephone calls here is that we would call for outside of the organization to other people. Now, in this instance here, we just made a telephone call between the two of them. That was not really that, mind-blowing, of course. But the idea here is now we can give people on the outside, here's my work phone number. And that's fine. But calling internally through the PSTN, that is just really stupid to do. And I'll be quite frank with you here because that's really dumb. Why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just go and decide of Teams here and do a voice call or a one-to-one call? Remember, we did that before where I come over here for Geddy Lee. I see that M. Alloway is online, as you can see, so I'm just going to hit the call button. That's a direct voice over IP call as opposed to the PSTN call. These are much better quality. These are going to be much more stable, and you get better results from doing so. So that's the whole purpose there of calling, but again, the idea behind phone numbers themselves are, we put them out to the organization for people on the outside to call. Or if I need to call your cell phone or something like that, I can do it. Now, another option that I can do here is I can do a forward, where if I want to, I hit more settings on here. Hey, if I want to, if unanswered, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to ring to a new number? Do we want to forward my calls, maybe to a cell phone, a call group, hunt group, whatever I want to do? So if I don't answer, it will forward my calls over. That's fine. But I can also ring elsewhere. So if somebody were to call this 216-230-5621 number, what will end up happening is that I can actually have that to my cell phone as well. So if I'm out traveling around, I can forward that to my cell phone at the same time. That's called a blast, if you will. So if one person calls and it gets directed to multiple different phone numbers. Now this is all done on the client side here, so we don't really have to do much. Now also another thing about the voicemail, as you see here, is that we can configure it. By default, it's going to give us here's the language. We can do a text to speak here, which is really cool. We could say, hey, I am unavailable, sorry, but it's going to have Cortana say it to you. And she's going to say those different things there. Now we can also put, this is a really cool feature here where we get these out of office times. So when I have my Outlook auto reply on, and we looked at that in the email discussion there, but if I put Outlook auto replies or my out of office replies on, I can have that as an option that here's my custom out of office greeting that somebody calls it, they'll get this greeting that says, hey, I am out of office, I will not have access, I will respond to all conversations or communications, blah, 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 whatever I want to there, of course. This is a great little functionality here so we can unify these pieces here. So really cool stuff. We could, of course, like always, record a greeting. Hey, maybe we want to have, I don't know, and we used to do, I remember doing this back in high school where we record on our, our voicemail, and it would be some phone or some song that we would, record from the radio. That was a long time ago, obviously, but we don't do that too much anymore. So you have the ability to do lots of different things here. We can do other things as well. So you have some base functions here. So when it does get to it, okay, we can allow them to record a message. We can record a message or be transferred to somebody else. End the call without playing your greeting. They basically just, it dies. I don't know why you would really want to do that. There's not a lot of real reasons you want to do that, but you can play your greeting and then end the call or just immediately transfer it to somebody else. Now here's the thing, as I said, I have done all of this on the client side. This is not the admin side taking care of this here. So just to show you. And of course we could change the ringtones as well if they have different functionalities. They always have this one here, which I'll play for you, which you've already heard, but I'll play for you again. That one, kind of annoying, sure, but we have a lot of other ones. Hey, maybe we want to do bop. So maybe we want to do different ones here. So if it's a forwarded call, somebody forwards it over, maybe I want to have a different one, or a delegated call, same concept, just so I know the difference when they come in. I can do lots of different ones. There's a whole bunch on here, but again, we've seen all of these before. So we're going to go ahead and hit the X on it. So again, we've assigned numbers to people. Now they can call, they can receive calls, and they can call out. Awesome. All really cool stuff there. How simple was that? I mean, really, that's all we had to do. Now we can do domestic here calling with this particular plan only, so only US and Canada. We can add international dialing if we want as well. that's a whole nother thing there, but that's a whole different discussion. It may make sense, of course, if we want to add those, if we have a global presence. However, it is never a good idea to have PSTN calling enabled for if we have, let's say we have an office in the UK and then we have an office in the US. Why would we never ever want to go out to the PSTN to call those people over there. We want to call inside the network. We do Teams peer-to-peer calls. That's what, I showed you here. We call this, we pick it up. We say, here's Giddy Lee. We make a phone call directly to them or an internal direct call. These right here do not use the PSTN. It doesn't make sense to go out to the PSTN. Again, the PSTN is really only designed for people outside of the organization to contact us. That's really it. It's an old tried and true method there. Okay, let's come back to the Teams Admin Center. This is still doing whatever it's doing there. So we have one more phone number, which again, we're not really going to use. I'm going to release all these here after I'm done recording, of course. But, these are the locations that we can do. So what if we want to go through some of these settings on here, and I'm just going to go, high level on some of them because, again, we can't go super deep in there, but we will set up a couple like an auto attendant and a call queue and such. But let's start off with Operator Connect. So if we have operators, which again, I don't have any operators currently right now. I have none. I would actually have to assign somebody as an operator. So if somebody does, if we have in one of our auto attendants or one of our call queues or whatever, where it's like press 0 to talk to an operator, these are the people that I would assign as operators. And right now, as you see, we have the ability to go to different carriers. Now we're not going to talk about these here, but again, these operators here, Microsoft calls, is that we can come into carriers. I'm sorry. These are not operators in the fact of press 0 to call operator. I apologize. That's not what I meant to say. I meant to say that these are our carriers, not our operators. Operators are down there in the auto attendants. I apologize. But here, anyway, the operators are going to be, what are available. There are 36 of them that are available out here now. Microsoft has quite a lot of them. Honestly, the biggest one that I see for the most part is Microsoft, their own. But again, we can use all of these others if we need. And like I said, these are all, maybe we already have, like I said, for instance, Verizon, maybe we already have a deal with them and we're working with them already. We can integrate them as a carrier for us, or an operator, excuse me. Direct routing, this is really around SBC or session border control, where if we were to call, maybe we want to integrate a Cisco voice system with Microsoft Teams, let's just say. And I'm working with a customer right now where they're kind of in the beginning phases of looking at what it's going to take to go from their Cisco voice system to Microsoft's Teams voice. Okay, so in this instance here, we have something called a session border controller where it sits on the edge of the network. It handles SIP traffic. And it takes this traffic as if I were to make a call, and it goes to the Cisco system, and the Cisco system says, oh, this person's been moved to Teams. It takes it over the SBC. The SBC then goes out to the Teams connections there, makes a SIP connection, and then we have a voice route. This is a little bit more complicated for most things that we're going to be dealing here with in this course, a little outside of the scale of it, of course. But just to let you know, that's what these are for if we want to set up SBCs and routes. Okay, calling policy. So again, this is a newer functionality here. They have these new policies that are down here, which I actually like, and I'm happy that they did that because they were kind of annoying to work with before. But now we have the ability here to set policies. So calling policies by default, we have all of these. Hey, maybe we don't want people to make private calls. Maybe we don't want transcription or cloud recording because we can record if we wish. Do we want to call forwarding and simultaneous ring? You can read these things on here, of course. If we want to change them or if we want to hard code them, we can do that as well. That's where you can see on here some of these things. Spam filtering by default is turned on. This is a new thing here where Microsoft is. I'm sure we all get calls where, our auto insurance is about to expire or whatever. We get those spammy calls all the time. Microsoft has a built-in spam feature here around calling, and we can turn this on here, or we can turn it off, or we can turn it on with the IVR. We're not going to talk about IVRs or anything like that now, but again, these are just some functionalities that you have the ability for users to do. We have 3 built-in policies here. One is allowed calling, one is disallowed calling. So again, in this instance here, well, this one makes sense here, is pretty much everything is shut off. And in this one here, everything is turned on. But again, the global here is everything's turned on except for recording here. So easy enough there. just a nice little feature here of another way of being able to manage our calling policies. Call hold policies, simple here, where here's the files. Here are what you get if you want to be able to do a audio file. So again, in this instance here, this is specific if we have like a custom one for our organization that tells different recordings and such. These are available to the users, so they can put these on there on hold or whatever. And you saw that in that forwarding setting that we showed earlier in the Teams client. Call park. Again, this is another one here where we want to put you on hold. What happens then? Call park, do we want it on or off? By default, it is off for the organization here. We can't turn it on, and we can customize a little bit here where the different sections here. We get a call park timeout of 300 seconds, and then you get these ranges here. Nothing major there. Again, this is really around the idea of a more complicated type scenario. If you want to put a call on hold and transfer it to somebody else, what do we want to do? So it essentially takes it and puts it to a virtualized number, and that virtualized number just kind of sits there until somebody can transfer it over to you. So you get a call and they say, okay, let me put you on hold, and then you go and say, hey, so-and-so wants to talk with you, and then they transfer it over. Like I said, by default, that's turned off. We can turn that on and have different functions there. Caller ID policies. This one here is, do we want to block incoming caller ID, override the policy? And again, this is the calling party name, which if we say here is, depending on the location, this is where we would put it in here and it would show up to other people or different things here. So we can choose here, do we want the service number? So again, if I call you, do we want it to come from a service number or anonymous? Depending on our scenario, it may make sense. I don't know. And it really depends if we have a call center or something like that. Dial plans, this is the normalization type rules where, hey, we want to do external dialing prefix, or if we want to test out a plan. Again, this is all E164. As you can see here, E.164 is the format, which is just a normalization. So if I were to type in different things, like we want to do 4567 as an internal extension, we can do that. Come in here through the dialing plan, have a normalization rule. If somebody were to type in 4567, it would get normalized in here, which would then get converted to, we would put on the rest of it as well. So again, this is very telephone-like, so I don't want to get too far into it because again, this is just around Teams. I just want to give you a high-level overview of the things it can do, of course. But moving into emergencies, very important here, E911. What do we do here? We have external locations. So there is a scenario here where there's really two rules, but the big one that we're looking at is the law is called Kari's rule or Kari's rule. It's K-A-R-I, and their law, and that law was around it is that essentially what happened was there was a young woman that was in a hotel and she was having some sort of, I think it was a cardiac event, we'll just say, of some sort, and she needed to call 911. Well, in order to call 911, you had to dial an extension to dial out to get to 911, so you couldn't go directly out. Well, she ended up, I believe she ended up dying, if I do recall. But that really kind of came out and kind of brought some idea here to the idea of 911 is that no matter which phone I pick up in anywhere in the world, or in the United States, I guess, because we have different numbers, like I think in the UK is 999, but whatever it is, I need to be able to do here in the US, if I need to be able to pick up a phone here and dial 911, I should just be able to hit 911 and immediately should go out. So that's the whole purpose behind these emergency calling summaries here. We get dynamic, and that's what's referred to as E911. So again, if I'm calling and they do the trace back to which phone it came from and everything, I can do that. I can see it, of course, that hey, this phone called it and such. But if we need to be able to, you're calling from a giant building that has I don't know, hundreds of offices and such, and where am I calling from? Well, sometimes it's difficult to do that because we need to be able to relay that over to the 911 operator to say where you're calling from. Our cell phones do that, and that's easy because we just use GPS locations and such. Well, obviously we don't have that built-in functionality inside of Teams because, again, we're just in a computer. So in this instance here, how do we do this? Well, we actually have to tag these based off of, here's this phone, this user, whatever, tied to various locations inside of an organization, physical locations. And they when they dial 911, that's essentially what comes back to it. So they know that this is the office, the floor, XYZ. So 911 can essentially do that without having to, check in. Because again, time is very of the essence when you're calling 911. So voice routes, this is for direct voice routes, which again, we're not really going to talk too much about it. We don't really want to edit these voice routes here. This is where we would go directly to a carrier or maybe to an SBC or a different SIP service, whatever it may be. Here, this is the global one, which we almost never really kind of play around with, but it really depends. So again, in this instance here, it's not utilized very heavily, but it is an option for us if we need to change our organization's routing. Now, again, this is based off of groups too. So voicemail policies, what do we want you to do? We've looked at the voicemail stuff, but here's the maximum recording. They actually have it. There's an error there, but I believe it's 300 seconds. Yeah. Well, I can barely get to the 300, but 300 I believe is the default. And users can edit the rules. So we saw that already when I clicked in there. Do we want to mask profanity? That's turned off. Translation. This one is using Cortana, essentially to, as you're leaving a phone call in there, you can get an email that says, here's what they're looking for. So before you actually even listen to it, you can get an idea of it. No, that's just text or voice to text. So again, just the idea here. What do we want to do? And then we have these. Hey, do we want to transcription profanity masking? It's an option. I've never seen it in a while, but it's out there. Okay, so the policy section here, these are just ways of being able to control different functions inside of our voice areas. So again, Microsoft is trying to make this into kind of a full-blown enterprise voice scenario here, or a PBX, if you will. So let's jump here into the different sections. Okay, so first we have auto attendance. Now, here's the thing about auto attendance is that auto attendance here, everything based in Office 365. If you've taken any of the other classes here, everything inside of Office 365 is based on a user account. Well, the problem with an auto attendant is that that's not a user, right? I mean, that's a specific person or like a resource account, if you will. So that's what we actually have to create resource accounts first. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create this display name. We're going to just kind of call this PSP-auto. We'll just do auto A, just because I don't feel like typing the whole thing out. And then we create a username for it. Auto A at, and then we can choose whatever domain we want here. I'll just keep it the default one. This is going to be an auto attendant. I'm going to hit save. And you can see, there you go. So if I come over here to, we have to wait a few minutes for it to kind of replicate out there, as always. We come over here to auto attendance. And this is where we start creating, well, the fun stuff here. All right, so to manage the flow, how do we want to do this? We want a voice app, external phone number, or an operator. So again, they interchange operator with different things here. As I was referring to earlier, this operator, as they're calling, which I wish they called them carriers as opposed to operators. But again, in this instance here, is that do we want to have an operator here? So we're just going to call this PSP Auto A, just so it matches everything on it. We're going to, we'll just set this up for an external phone number. Now, we don't have an external phone number. It must be a number for the external phone number. So we need to be able to set this up here. So we're going to set this up as no operator for the time being here. Time zone, I am currently in Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to come down here, -5. In Eastern, and I'm going to create this language here, and we will do voice inputs on, just to show you here. I'm going to hit next, and we're going to look at the flow. Okay, when I call, what happens? Well, in this instance here is, thank you for calling the Pocket Square Professor. We can even have a little bit of fun things on here. Okay, so we want to do a couple of, well, different things. Okay, so this is where we're going to play an audio file or add a greeting message, which again, it needs to press 1 for Matt, and then we'll do different things on here. So we'll assign a dial key. So dial key of 1 is redirect into an operator or a person in the organization. So again, press 1 for Matt. So I'm going type in Matt. There we go. Then press 1 for Matt. Press 2 for Getty. I'll assign another one here. Person in organization. Getty Lee. So they do have to have a phone number attached to them. And let's just see here. If we're going to press 3, what do we want them to do here? We can go to an operator. Now, we don't have an operator account. We have to set one up, of course. But maybe we want to type in a message. You are awesome. Dial another one here. We'll do 4. We can go right to a voicemail. Or, if we want, what we can do here is go to a voice app. So this would be another resource account. So what we're going to do here is we're going to leave this as it is because we're going to come back to it, but we're actually going to remove this. So just hit the delete on it. Press 3 for Getty. Press 3 for a cool message. Then we also have the ability to dial by name or extension. Extension dialing here is available if we have the normalization policy. We can certainly do that. But let's just say here, we're going to actually do, and we will, let's do a voicemail. And we're going to send it directly to Matt Alloway. Come on. Go away. I don't know why that's not showing up under there. You know what we'll do here is we'll just, we'll just keep it as it is. We'll come back to this is enough here. I don't play around too much more with this here because this can get a bit goofy here over time. But, okay, so here's the greeting. Say, hey, thank you for calling the Pocket Square Professor. Then press 1 for Matt, press 2 for Getty, press 3 for cool message. And then, of course, whatever they press, these things happen. Now, we can do voice commands here, too. So it's like press or say 1 for Matt. Press or say 2 for Getty. And you can say that on here. Press or say 1 for Matt. Press or say 2 for Getty. And then we'll do press or say 3. So in this instance here will be, we can just do 1, 2, 3. So those are the voice commands there. So whatever we say in here, it will try to text to speech or speech to text it, and vice versa. It's pretty good for the most part. Hit next. Now, here's another thing that we can do is that we have business hours. You know, hey, maybe we want to have a little bit different of a scenario. Let's just say Monday or Sunday we are from 12 a.m. to, we'll say, I don't know, 11:45 p.m. just to make it easy here. We can do different times here too if we want. Let's just say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and clear that back there. So we're going to say our business hours are Sunday, we have none. We're closed. So we're just going to leave that as it is. Monday, we are, let's just say 8 a.m. to, we'll do 12 p.m. And add a new time here. And we're going to incorporate a lunch, of course, here. If we come all the way down to... They have a lot of these here, as you can see. What was it, 1 p.m. at 1 p.m. to, I'm not going to do this for all of them, of course, here, but we'll do 5 p.m. Okay, so in this instance here, so Sunday we have no times. Monday here, we're 8 a.m. to noon, and then 1 to 2, or excuse me, 1 to 5, so we have a lunch in there. So between 12 and 1, we can have an off hours call flow here, where we can say, sorry, we are closed. And then what do we want to do? We can redirect the call to a person, to a group, to a voicemail. whatever we want to do there. That could be lots of different things here. We can forward it. We can do it to a voice app, which would be kind of a resource account here, but we're just going to disconnect. It's going to outright disconnect. Or we can just go through menu options here too. So give them options here. So here's the flows, the calls. We're going to go into next. Call flows during holidays. Now we haven't set up any holidays here, but let's just say, see, we can add holidays directly in here. Let's just say, hey, we want to do, just to make it easy, we'll do Christmas. So the 24th, and the end date is the 25th. And we'll say 11:45 p.m. just to go. We can, of course, add other things on here. This is going to be Christmas. So a holiday of Christmas, maybe we want to say Merry Christmas. We are closed. And then disconnect. Oh. Actually, we'll just call this one Christmas here. Well, safe. So there's the holiday one. So for Christmas, here's the dates, boom, greeting message, and we're just going to disconnect. Now again, and most of the time what we would do is probably forward this to a voicemail or maybe like somebody on call, who knows what. We can do lots of different things here, of course. Okay, dial scope. Who do we want to dial here? So again, if somebody uses the organization directory, which we have enabled there, what do we want to do? All online users or custom users? And we can exclude specific people. Like, of course, in this instance here, I would probably exclude, like, the CEO of the company, because if I can find that out, which is normally public information and very easy to figure out, I can just call and say, hey, I want to speak to, John Smith, who is the CEO, and I can go directly to him. Well, never would we ever want to do that, so we would exclude those, like, VIPs, if you will, from it, so nobody can get there. We could also include here custom user group. So this would be like sales or customer service or something like that. I'm just going to keep it like this because, again, we don't really care. When you create an antenna, you got to assign a resource account. Now remember, we did assign a resource account to it, and I believe it was PSP-AutoA. Yes, it was. So we have assigned the auto attendant resource number to it, and we don't have a phone number just yet. We're going to submit. So what we have to do is we have to go over and request a phone number. We're going to hit add PSP.resources. So I'm going to do, again, United States, number type. Now in this instance here we have auto attendant, call queue. I'm just going to do a toll-free auto attendant. And we're just going to use Microsoft here in this instance. Now, I don't have any. Why? Because I don't have the license to do so. So what we're going to do here is we got to go assign a license to that service account. Come over here. And you can see we have the PSP-AutoA. Now you can see sign-in block on these guys here, but we still have to assign a calling plan to them. And we'll just do the E5. Technically, we do have to do the domestic calling plan and all of that as well. So we'll just do that for the time being. Come on. And these are the numbers that we can have. So 855-866-888. We can actually have an 888 number if they're available. But we're going to, I'm just going to copy this here because we got to close out of it. And hopefully it is available. We'll just copy that there. I wonder if we can potentially get by. All right, we have 20 of those. We have no toll-free numbers. Interesting. Those must not be available yet. That's fine. We'll just use a toll one for the time being, since it's only going to be for testing purposes. And again, in this instance here, obviously, I'm going to do 216. So we'll just do auto attendant toll. It's fine. So they're reserving the numbers, and there's the number that I got. We're going to place the order. Okay. Finish, and you will see that we have another one on here, which says conference or voice app. So voice app is the license usage. That is the one that is a resource account, so to speak here. So we click here, and what do we want to do with it? Well, obviously we want to assign it. Now again, we may be pushing this like we saw with Getty there. We maybe pushed it just a bit too fast, but we'll see. Sometimes this portal here gets a little bit screwy with the web interface, but that's okay. Just 9 times out of 10 a refresh takes care of most things. So here's the voice app. Edit. There we go. Assign to resource account. You have to go to this, which is really goofy because you got to do it from here. Assign, unassign. Phone number. We have a and we can see it there. So that is the one that we have set up that was given to us. We hit calling plan. Make sure you hit calling plan. Save. And now you will see that this auto A has a phone number. Now again, remember, you cannot log into this. It's just a resource or a service account is what they, would technically be referred to on premise. We would create these just for these specific little resources. And you can see, hey, we got a phone number on here. Now we're going to give it just a second here, and I'm actually going to call in from my cell phone, which I'll put up next to the speaker here so you can hear it. But what will end up happening is that everything that we did, and I'll come back over here to the auto attendant just to show you the flow. So here's the flow that we have. So I'm going to call, which I forgot that phone number. So let's cancel out of this here for the time being. I'm going to, where's that resource account here? I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to put it over here, just off to the side so I can see it. And then we'll pull up the auto attendant. Okay, and just so we can have the call flow as you hear it. Okay, so we're going to call 216-307-7340. So we'll see here if this is available yet. So you can hear it calling.
Sorry, we are closed.
So, got a message there that says, sorry, we're closed. Well, why? Well, I'm currently recording this on a Saturday. So I was expecting this here, which is funny because it actually works. Hey, we're sorry we're closed, boom, and we're done. Remember, we have these call flows here. So what I'm going to do here is, because I'm on a Saturday, I'm going to add this. We're going to do it from 12 a.m. to the 12 a.m. So it's going to be open all day. So we'll submit, just so we can save that in there. Now it takes a second or so for this logic to set in. Come back to the call flow. Call it again.
Thank you for calling the Pocket Square Professor. Sorry, I didn't find anyone with this name.
All right, let me try and recall it again here. It picked up a little bit of recording because of the microphone and everything I'm plugging into here. So I'm going to try and be really quiet. We'll try it again so we can listen to the entire thing.
Thank you for calling the Pocket Square Professor. Press or say 1 for Matt. Press or say 2 for Getty. Press or say 3 for a cool message. You are awesome. Press or say 1 for Matt. Press or say 2 for Getty. Press or...
So I'm calling number 2 here, which is Getty.
Transferring your call to 2.
Which is going to show up over here. And you can see that it is transferred by the PSP Auto A, which I'm hoping I can bring that over. No, I cannot. Well, there's a little thing on here that says you're being transferred by the PSP Auto A. Go ahead and hit close on that, and the call has been canceled. So now as you see on here, we made a couple of changes. I just typed the stuff in, and actually the text worked. The text to speech here worked. And it's actually pretty easy, and that made sense here. So we don't have to actually pay professional ones here if we don't want to. These are pretty easy to work through. So as I said, I just pressed 2, and it went to the auto 2, which went to Geddy Lee here, which of course you couldn't see because it's locked over on my other screen. But not really a big deal. It just says income calling transferred from the auto A, the auto attendant. Now I probably would have a little bit more verbose so the users know, like, customer service or something like that. But again, just working through this whole process here, this is the high level overview of setting up an auto attendant. This one's pretty easy to set up. So now what we can do here is we can also set up a call queue if we wish, which we'll just kind of go through this process here. We'll just call this PSP-call queue. Now we got to have a resource account. Now, of course, we don't have a resource account here, which is super annoying. Or if we want, we can do a call ID. So again, is that if it makes outbound phone or calls with this, where it's going to come from. So again, we would have to create a resource account. So we can do that real quick just to get a little bit more usage on this. Go ahead and discard resource account. Call this one PSP-call queue. And then we will do PSP CQ just to make it easy, and we will make this a resource account of a call queue. There we go. Hit save. And we'll see there. Now I don't have a phone number attached to it. I would have to essentially take another one. But again, I think we'll understand the concept here. I don't need to take another phone call or another phone number on here. But if we come over here to call queues, let's make it easy here. We'll do it PSP-call queue. And that's the accounts that we're adding. So here's that, here's the thing. Now we don't have a phone number or anything attached to it, but we can put this, probably makes sense to put this in English. Here is United States English, there we go. Oh, gotta give it a call. PSP-call queue. Okay, what do you want to do here? Add a greeting message. Thank you for calling the call queue. Put you on hold. Okay, so we can play an audio file if we want, or just the default message. Hit next. Who do we want to put this to? So this is going to be groups of users or maybe specific users here. So we'll add a user here. We'll do, Geddy Lee. Add him, and then we'll also add Matt Alloway, just because it makes sense. Now we have 2 people inside of here. Here are the 2 agents that we have that can pick this up. And we can also do conference mode, where multiple people can pick it up if needed. So we can also do this to a team, which is really nice. Next, agent selected. We could do a couple different ones here. Longest idle, attendant routing, which if you read it here, it's going to ring all at the same time, and the first one to pick it up gets the call, which is pretty much the easiest one here. Presence-based routing. This is based off of, hey, if I am available, it will ring to me. If I am not available, it will not ring to me. You can opt out, and then we would have an alert time here where you are essentially getting, that's the phone call is ringing for that long to show on here. We can do different ones, like a serial routing, like it starts off with 1, and then it always goes to 2, and then always 3. Think of it as almost like a waterfall, if you will. Or round robin is at 1, 2, 3, then 2, 3, 1, then 3, 2, 1, and then 1, 2, 3, and it kind of goes over and over and over again. Or the longest idle here, which is just whoever has been idle the longest, who has not gotten a call. So we'll do attendant routing. Maximum calls in the queue, 50. We can go up to 200, which again, what do we want to do when we reach the maximum number here? We can disconnect or redirect to maybe an auto attendant or maybe a voicemail, something like that. I'm just going to disconnect here. Maximum wait time. What do we want to do? When the call times out, what do we want to do here? All right, well, in this instance here, maybe we want to, again, go to a voicemail, and we'll get back to you. Or, hey, we want to, go to an operator. I don't know. Generally, operator's not a good call on this one. If somebody's been waiting 20 minutes, they're getting annoyed and all of that. We're just going to disconnect here. So we hit submit. And we have the call queue. Now we are going to, let's go ahead. We'll take the phone. That's fine. It's not going to hurt anything here. So we want to get a phone number. I want to get one more phone number. We're going to call this call queue. Call queue. Let's go all the way down to the United States. Phone number type. We'll do just do a toll because we get those here. And we're just going to do one. Search by area code. And again, I'm going to do 216. But again, feel free to do whatever. Don't just always do 216. You're going to start running out of numbers there eventually. So pick whatever is most relevant to you. Okay, here's the reserved number. Looks good. We're going to place that order for it. Thank you. It has been put into play. Come over here. I think is this new one here. We're going to hit edit. We want to assign this to a resource account. And again, just like we did before, we got to come over here, assign. Oops, wrong one. And the call queue is what we got to do. Oh, that's right. Forgot. Hit refresh. Call queue. Now again, in this instance here, there's different licenses that I can assign to people. We're just making this easy since we have them. We would never put an E5 license on a resource account. They actually have resource account licenses that we can get. So here's the E5 with the domestic calling plan that has been assigned to it. Now we just got to wait. Let's give this a refresh. Yeah, resource accounts do have their own specific license, and obviously we do not have to pay anywhere near as much as we would for an E5 license to them, of course. Come on. So we just got to wait for this to replicate out, which will take a minute or so. Make sure that did go on there. Call queue, yeah, calling plan and everything on there. Just got to wait. Just give it a minute. There we go. Calling plan. Phone number. That one that's assigned to it. Hit save. Wait for the little swirly swirl here to finish up. And when we refresh this page, we should see. There we go. Okay, so the call queue, which I am going to copy now. And just so we can show the different scenarios that are going on here. Now, let's just say I, over here with my M. Alloway, I'm going to say I am on Do Not Disturb. Okay, so I'm going to be removed from that call queue as it stands. Now, we are pushing this along here quick, so I'm going to go ahead and call that number, which is 216-307-7534.
Complete the call. Please check the number.
Oops, I apparently misdialed that number. So we got to wait for a second here. It is still in the process of provisioning, so we will give that just a second so it can be assigned. Like I said, here's the big thing about this. We just got to really wait. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. Traditionally, we would never do this quickly, but since it's a lab environment, as I said, not really that big of a deal, but we'll just kind of continue giving it a minute.
Thank you for calling the call queue.
So it puts us on hold, and I am getting a call over on my Geddy Lee here, but you see that Matt, I'm not getting anything. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the thing on that one there. Whereas my Matt account over here would absolutely, if I were available, yeah, basically available is the only one I believe. I don't believe Busy does either, nor do Be Right Back or Appear Away. I know definitely Do Not Disturb does not. So at that point there is that we blasted out to both. Somebody can just kind of pick it up, as you saw on there, like Geddy, if he was a customer service person, just pick it up and say, okay, cool, blah, 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 and we move on. So that's a pretty easy one there. That one's easy enough to kind of work through there, and the logic makes sense. So again, overall aspect of it, I just wanted to kind of show you, these are the options that we have. We've gone through all of these voice functions. Just a few little pieces that I want to show you here. We've already looked at the locations. You know, we've created the emergency ones. We do have the ability to put network topologies and networks and locations in there, where we can look at our switches, ports, and tags and everything here. This is really for building a subnet location and such. So what we can do here is check quality, but also get an idea of where these things are coming from, so we can tag them as they're coming. So again, it's really kind of around for the E911 scenario here, so we can actually see, hey, this subnet is tied to this switch, which is in this location, and then we can look at the ports they're coming from and all of that too. Let's see here. There's one other thing that I want to show, and this is something I think is very important as well. So there's a few things on here, and we already looked at the analytics here, but I want to show you, and I'm going to come over here to users. I think would be easier. So if we come over here and we hit Matt Alloway, or again, whichever your admin account is, what we can do here is we can see meetings and calls. Let's see here. We don't have any recent meetings. I swear we had a meeting. Let's see if Geddy Lee has a meeting then. Ah, that's because I picked the wrong one. That was the admin one I picked up. Huh. I was going to say, I was like, I'm pretty sure we had one on here. So you can see that here is my location, my emergency location. Remember, and I'm at Progressive Field here just for the Cleveland Guardians. If I come over here to meetings and calls, I don't have any recent meetings. That's disappointing here, but I swear it even says I had 3. Why is it not showing my meetings? That's really strange. Because it should. But let me see, maybe I can come over to try Geddy. I don't know why it's not showing. It's a little strange. Let's try Geddy. Let's see, have meetings and calls. I don't have my meetings and calls, but we have the 7-day quality at least, which is useful. So what I was going to show, I didn't mean to go to policies there. Usage. You can see I haven't done much in terms of audio. So unfortunately here, so what I should see are meetings and calls. Now it's probably, I swear we've had, and you can even see we've had 6, and they've all been good quality. But what's good quality? So again, we looked off of that is that based off of the call that we're in, we're looking at call quality statistics. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you that in real time. Now I'm going to call Geddy. So I'm going to call him. You know what we're going to do here? No, I don't want to use the camera, but we can use the microphone. No, don't use that. We'll continue without. That's fine. I'm calling him over here. I'm going to make sure I'm on mute. He's going to answer. There we go. Make sure he's muted as well. So no, we don't get any kind of reverberation between the two. But as you see on here, and I'm going to pull over Geddy's call. So this is Geddy here. If I'm going to come over here to more, I can actually look at in real time my call health. So what we're looking at here is I can see right now I have a jitter of 1.5 milliseconds, which is actually really good. Every 15 seconds we're going to get it. So we got to wait for this call to kind of get a little bit more information, but we're actually going to get network data as well as round trip time. So remember what I said about call quality during the lecture here, that it's actually very important. These types of things are actually very, very important. We can get them now in real scenarios. We have 0% packet loss, which again is good. We're still waiting on, we're not going to see screen sharing or video since we're not obviously sharing anything here, but this network round trip time here is not giving me anything just yet. But neither here nor there. What we're doing here is we can get this in real time. This is for the end users to be able to see. And then what I also can show you over here, as I said, is this meetings and call button here, where it should give me more detailed information, which I'm hoping that it will actually show here in some point in the near future. But again, as you can see, we had 6 good. Well, it's based off of several different things. Microsoft wants us to essentially have a good round trip time, as well as a good or a low jitter rate, and then really from the kind of quality and the packet loss there, we want as little as possible, of course. Because again, we're using UDP traffic here, and we're looking for, as I said before, the biggest piece here is we are looking to make sure that we get to Microsoft's front door as quickly as possible in the least amount of time. We don't want to go through proxies because proxies are going to break that traffic. They're going to inspect it, and it is going to take forever for it to get there. It's going to cause terrible call quality. I have had many customers who try to do that because they're like, it's very secure. And I'm like, well, SIP traffic in its own right is what it is. But remember, these are all going over port 5060, 5061, and then it gets transferred over through, essentially going to be through 443. So they are going to be encrypted over time once we actually make that session initiation there. But again, when it comes down to it, is that once you do that and you try to make a call and you have terrible quality experience, well, the users are going to freak out on you. You know, they're going to say, well, this is terrible. I have terrible call quality, terrible experience. This is all really bad. So again, at that point there, I mean, we got to look at it. You know, there's so much that what makes the most sense. Well, again, Microsoft has been very adamant about it, is saying that, you know, hey, we want you to get there as quickly as possible. See, it still hasn't showed up yet. So it's not really the end of the world here if we don't see it. But what we would see over here too would be some of the statistics of those meetings. We would get quality of service and quality of life on those calls there. And you could see the device that they called in from. You can see the network, you know, and then they said, hey, this was terrible quality. But then you look at it and you're like, well, that's because you were using your AirPods and you were calling in from, you know, a very poor, you know, you're inside of Starbucks and using their network in there. Well, of course, the call quality is going to be terrible at that point. What do you want to do? So again, at that point there, it's easy to tell. You can also get kind of leaks in your network and see where people are causing the most problems, where there are dead spots and such. So again, we have the ability to look at a lot of those. We also can do this call quality dashboard here, which will give us we have to double log in here, which is super annoying, but this will give us a screenshot here of our data. Now, there's not going to be a whole lot of data in here, of course, because we don't have any trends. But as you can see on here, we have 0% poor. Microsoft wants you to be at less than 2% poor is considered good. So we can see this here is that client to server, which we got nothing in here. This is if we were to upload our data, our server to server, is that if we were to upload our data around our switches, ports, and all of those things there, we would be able to get data inside here because we'd be able to attribute them to Wi-Fi or, you know, whatever. Client to client, again, we don't have any data inside of here. There's just really nothing in here because, again, we don't have any of those wired network pieces here. And then the voice quality SLA, which, again, don't really have anything on here because we don't have enough calls to make this fully in there. But the idea behind this here is that we can get a snapshot. This is more of an executive overview of the quality of calls and what they're like. And you can see on here, here's the different calls that we had. Here's a call we had today, both of which were good, as you see on here. And then we have unclassified as well. Now, the unclassified are going to be the PSTN calls that we had in this instance here today. Just to show you, you know, these are different trends and such. Hey, maybe we're having more problems with the network and such, but hey, maybe we want to, gosh, there's so many other different things that are on here, as you can see. I'm not going to go through all of them here. You can kind of read them and see, and obviously look through them if you want, but again, it's not going to help you out because you need to be able to upload more data from your network to get in here. So again, in an enterprise area, it would make sense, but since we're just in a lab, you don't get a lot of information here. Okay, overall, that is pretty much it. There's just one last bit that I want to show you. And this one is pretty easy, but it's really around the idea of audio conferencing. Now, you saw in here we don't really have, you know, there's no audio conferencing per se that's on here. So it's actually under meetings and we have audio conferencing. So right now we have a default here is that include toll-free numbers in meetings created by users of this policy. Now, we don't have any toll-free numbers. Remember, we didn't look at those. Well, remember what I said here is that these are all based off of Microsoft. These are all Microsoft provider ones here. We can assign these, and it'll pick whatever one is most location to you, depending on your geographic location. You know, for the most part, mine would probably be Chicago. That's generally what mine always gives out, but it really depends on some different scenarios too. Again, it's all based off of DNS settings because, again, where are we resolving to? That's what we want to look at. So here's the settings here. What do we want to do? Do we want to do a tone when somebody jumps in? Do we want, you know, there's lots of different things that we can do inside of here too. So audio conferencing here is automatically attached. We have that as part of our E5. That does not require a calling license. That calling license trial that we created, that is only if you want to use the PSTN calling. That's it. So if somebody wants to have somebody call you or you call out, that's all that's for. So we're looking at audio conferencing here. There's a couple of things that we can do. So I'm going to show you and give you just a very simple example. We're going to go to Teams. We're going to go Exchange. We're going to do an ad hoc Meet Now meeting. I'm going to go ahead and continue without audio. We'll minimize all of that. I'm going to jump in. And this ad hoc one here, as you see, is not going to, didn't mean to do that, it's not going to have anything on it. Why? Because this is just an ad hoc meeting. We cannot add any kind of audio conferencing in terms of audio and video on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit hang up. I'm going to schedule a meeting real quick. Now, I'm going to call this important. This is going to be to everybody here. And what we're going to do, we're going to keep we'll keep the location, we'll keep the channel there, we'll send that out to everybody. All right, so we have one here, and you can see that it's going to happen here in just a couple of minutes. If I click on the invite, you'll see down here that I have audio. So there is a number, and that is 4195946. What does that one actually equal out to? 5946. I don't know. That's actually, oh wait, we're in Tel Aviv. This must have just switched everything over. Definitely didn't want to put it that way. Just try to do this here, yeah. 5946, you can see it's the default. Here for me is Los Angeles. And we could choose this to whatever we want. So maybe we want to make this one the default. Okay, well that one's the default. Chicago's not the default. Whatever. So the idea here is that I can join this meeting. And then we'll continue. Now in this instance here, now I have an option that says, hey, we can add a room. I'm not really going to talk too much about that. But again, if we want to have like room systems and such, that's fine. But right now we're just going to let's do phone audio. So I can, they'll call me or I can dial in. Now if I call in to my phone, it's going to attach directly to my account. But if I call in manually, it's going to basically come in here. Now I'm not going to do this here because again, it requires me to dial in my phone number and my cell phone and such. But again, in this instance here, you can have it call you, which is generally the easier function. But again, in this instance here, why am I dialing in via audio or through my phone? Again, why? What's the purpose? Why am I not using my equipment that's attached to my computer? That's the point of it, and that's something that needs to really be trained as you go through it. So I'm going to go hang up here. Just wanted to show you that. So as you said, or as it stands here, if we have our own conference bridge, we can absolutely add our own and port them over. We can do toll-free. We can add our own, be specific on here. Now, these are all, Microsoft shares these around here. But again, the idea here is that when we come back here and go to this here, we have specific meeting IDs as well as passcodes here. So we have the phone conference number, which is this PIN. So this is a specific PIN, which is a 9-digit PIN, which somebody, yes, lots of people will be calling this, of course, but that's not going, nobody can really just kind of jump in unless they have this PIN. So you can't just jump into this call. So again, just to show you a little bit more information on that. So overall, audio conferencing there is actually a nice little, it's a useful feature if somebody's taking it from the road or whatever, they want to jump in a conference call. That's fine. That's what the purpose of those are for. But again, when it comes down to it, it's a bad idea generally to just have your users be used to calling in through the PSTN because you do have a pool of minutes. Okay, every license has 60 call out minutes per month. So it's a giant pool. So if you have 1,000 of them, you have 60,000 minutes as a whole from the organization. Now again, why do we care? And why, if somebody's sitting at their desk and they have a device for their computer, why on earth are they calling in with the phone? You know, that's the whole point. You should not be doing that. You should be dialing in and attending via your headset because that is the easier. You get a better experience, more wideband audio. You get all of the best pieces of it. So the last thing I want to talk about here, and that's really the last bit here, are devices. So there are so many devices out there. We'll just look at, and actually you can buy them straight from here if you wish. Those buy them directly from Microsoft. So they have, you know, here are Teams, we'll say these are featured pieces on here, but let's just say here's a headset. So we have these headsets here. I have this one here and I like it. I think it's fine, but I'm not a big fan of over-the-ear stuff. So it doesn't really work well for me. So I'm a bigger fan of, as we continue going on here, there's a whole bunch of them as you can see. But like I said, I hate over-the-ear ones, so I like just the little pieces. And like the little ones that go in your ears, or, geez Louise, I don't know where the heck it's at here. There's so many of them that are on here, but again, not going to worry too much about it. But I like those, as well as what I like are these little hockey pucks. I have this Sync 40 Plus here, which I love. This thing is great. This thing right here is what I use in my day-to-day. And actually, I use the USB. No, I have this 40 Plus here. This is the one I have. I used to have a Callisto, which I don't even think is on here anymore. But unfortunately, I used it too much where it just died. But again, these little things are great. I love these because they're really designed, but they're designed for more of a room scenario, but I don't like having things over my ears, especially because I'm in calls sometimes 12, 15 hours a day straight, and it drives me nuts. So I like having these where I'm inside my office here. I can get up, walk around or whatever, and we can have audio conferencing, or I can talk with my customers and such. The great thing about it, and this is another reason why you want to potentially look at using your Teams certified devices, is you get another one is you get the audio, we'll call it audio fixing, if you will. So it's noise suppression. They have software built-in noise suppression. So it's looking for your voice, and then it does the other things on the outside of it, which is a really great feature here. And Teams is actually better than Zoom or WebEx, in my opinion, when it comes to that, just because of what they can do with it. They're so good at determining what your voice is versus what the outside stuff is. If I were to turn it on, again, I can't because I'm recording outside of Teams here, but if I were to be inside of Teams and I were to be using it without it, I can have a bag of chips and you would hear it and it'd be really annoying. I could be crunkling it right next to the microphone. It'd be super annoying. But if I were to turn it on to high, I can be crankling this right next to it and you would not even be able to hear it. It is a great, great feature that they have on here. So just another thing. So we also have, again, of course, webcams. There's tons of them. They can get pretty pricey, like this guy right here, this Yealink. There's a whole bunch of different ones that are available here nowadays. But we also have desk phones. I have... what is this? This guy? One of these guys here next to me. Is it this one right here? C40? Yeah, it's this C470, I think. That's what I have here. Nope, no, I have a Poly next to me. It's this CCX 600 is what I have. I don't know where the actual phone is. This one right here. It's 500. So it is a piece on it here. It's actually really cool. But yeah, I have that actually right next to my... right next to me right here, and it's very helpful. But you can get very creative with some of these on here, like this one here with the little flex one. Of course, I was out of stock here, but some of these can get ridiculously pricey, as you see. Like this one here is $600 because it's got the little sidecar, it's got the thing here along with all the buttons. It can get pretty crazy. Monitors, these are just kind of like little conferencing monitors, or for just little things. I don't necessarily see these a lot, but they are there. Teams rooms, this is where we start getting into the enterprise voice functionality, where we'll have an entire room, we have meeting bars, it'll look at who's talking and focus in on them. As you can see, the prices can get pretty astronomical. You're looking at an average around $3,000-$4,000. They can easily go up above that. Start looking at like Surface Hubs and such too. And then you start looking at 5 figures for some devices. So a lot of different things here based off of these. Are completely different scenario here, but just to show you that these are all on here too. So overall, that is a high level of Teams voice functionality. We did not dive into all of the nitty gritty of all of that. But I didn't want to dive into telephony and routing and all of those things because that's outside the scope of what this here. I just want to give you an overview of what Teams can do from a voice standpoint. It is a true enterprise voice PBX. It can do a lot with it as well. It's just really a more modern scenario here, and it fits into the modern network. So with that being said, thank you for your join in on this one here. That is it for the Teams and the MoCA and the modern collaboration discussions here. Certainly hope you learned something. And we are going to jump into the last section here. The next lecture is going to be around compliance and governance and more security aspects. There is a security aspect of it too, into data. So we're going to look at the data itself. We're going to look at some really awesome stuff. This is some of the more bleeding edge things here, but we're jumping into that in our next section there. So thank you for attending this section, and I will see you over on the next one.